Hey, hi, everybody. Sorry for the delay. Everybody get your paper and your pen. It's time for amazing, amazing learning tonight. If you all can, it'll be great. Okay, I feel like a broken tape recorder. If you all can turn on your videos. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Those who can turn on show me your beautiful faces. I really appreciate Jennifer always being there, ready and pretty all the time. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Jeremy. 谢谢谢谢感恩大家 Everybody turn on your camera. Let me see your beautiful, handsome 眼刀 faces. Okay, thank you, Cass. Okay, how many of you have done the homework? Can you raise your hands if you wrote your 3-minute story? Okay, in our business, we know for sure, facts tell, stories sell. Okay, we've heard this until we want to vomit already, okay? But there are some people's story we just don't want to hear anymore, right? And some people's story we want to hear, and then you want to, after you hear the 3-minute story, you call them, actually, what happened? What else? What else? Some people, oh, gold, don't tell me anymore. I want to vomit your story already, right? So what are the key components to build our business? Okay, when everything we say in our business, we want to impact lives, number one. But before we can even impact lives, first and foremost, we need to evoke emotions. Am I right to say that? If we don't, okay, I want to share something with all of you today. You all need to remember something. How many of you read fairy tales when you were young? How many of you read fairy tales when you're young? Put your hands up. No, all got no childhood. Got right. We read fairy tales. How many of us read? Jeremy, poor thing, no one read fairy tales to you. Okay, he shake his head. 好可怜啊！来，姐姐把你读故事书给你了。Okay.
You only make phone calls.
Yeah, I posting one joke. Okay, so now we all know 7 dwarf stories, Snow White lah, whatever. Am I right? But how many of us remember the full details? You don't, right? What did Cinderella do? What happened? The mother, we don't remember the details, right? But we remember a few things. She very poor thing, right? Am I right? Not your head leh, hello, right? Hui 姑娘很可怜, right? Got bully, 没有东西吃, got awful clothes to wear, cannot do manicure, correct or wrong? Okay. Then we remember, wow, got a pumpkin string, got beautiful dress, right? Can go to a ball dance with the prince, and then must come home by midnight, and then she 重点 married happily ever after. Okay, so what do I mean? Why do I remember these things? Because no clothes to wear, no manicure, must do housework, eat the last, right? And then met Prince Charming. Oh my gosh, met Prince Charming. So what I'm trying to say here is very simple. These evoke emotions for me, right? Oh my God, 白马王子, our Prince Charming, right? So emotions, remember this, emotions are the glue to memory. What you remember is the emotions. So you may not remember the full details, but you remember the emotions when I told you a story or when you read a story, what happened the most. I'll tell you something. My children always say, Mommy cannot remember movies, only the first 5 minutes or the back ending. Because you know why? It's either a sad ending or a happy ending, I remember. The in-between, I tend to forget, right? So remember that emotions are the glue to any memory. So when we say a story, to our own story, to our prospects or our friends, it must evoke emotion and it must mean something to them. That means it's relative. There's some connectivity. Okay, so today the training is not by me. It's by, of course, our amazing Eric Worre. So I'm going to play the video. I want all of you, okay, show me your pen, paper, and notes. If you can, show me your pretty yen tao, sweet face. Okay, you're all here with me. Okay, if they stand up and dance, if you can stand up and dance and evoke. Imagine you're in the Eric Worre event with me. Okay, be participative, immerse yourself in this training. It was brought to you by One Global Elite. Well, I feel like some radio DJ, but okay, sure, why not? Okay, this is brought to you by GoPro. Okay, come. Are you all ready? Can you all, if you're all ready, can you all put there ready, 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 send hugs and love while I'm pulling out the thing so that I know I'm not talking to myself. Okay, now all of you, if you all can, if you had dinner, and some of us just had a previous presentation, right? I know it's a lot to absorb. Stand up, dance, clap your hands, shake your legs.
Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Wait for. Mark's a page. Who you typing an email to? Let's pay attention out here.
Woo! Pay attention.
I am so excited to be here. It is 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving through rural Kentucky, asking myself, what am I doing here? Wisconsin.
Wait, got sound, right?
Ohio. And in Cleveland, Ohio, I
no
told
sound?
my story to a small group of people.
Yes, got sound.
I think you got to share computer audio.
No sound already.
Alright, no sound already.
Closed. The weekend had started. I finally called one and they answered. I said, "Can you help me?" And they said, "Yes." And they towed my car to their garage. I said, "I have a flat tire. Can you fix it?" He said, "Yes." And then he looked at it and said, "No, I can't fix it, but I can sell you a new tire." I said, "Great." And then he looked at my tire closer and said, "Wait a minute. I don't have a tire that size, but I have a tire that's slightly larger. I think it'll still work on your car. But I can't sell you one of those, or your car would be lopsided, but I can sell you 4 of those." I needed to get to Tennessee the next day to tell my story to a group of people, so I said, "Go ahead, put on the 4 big tires." And he did it. 2 hours later, I was on my way. Now it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm driving through rural Kentucky in my pimped out Ford Taurus, and I'm asking myself, what am I doing here? And the thought popped into my head that has popped into my head dozens of times since then. I have a story to tell, and that story changes lives. I believe you have a story to tell, every single one of you. Gwendolyn, you have a story to tell. Ronald, you have a story to tell. Bobby Phillips, Tiffany Denny, you have a story to tell, and that story will change lives. If you believe that you have a story to tell, why don't you type into the chat right now, "I have a story to tell." I have a story to tell, because when you believe that your story changes lives, you are going to commit every single day, not just to getting good at telling that story, but you are going to commit to telling that story every single day. You're not going to save that story for special events. You're not going to save that story for once a year. You are going to commit to telling that story every single day. Hey, we are going to strike our power pose. What's that for you? Is that the Hulk pose? Is that the Hulk Hogan pose? Or I call it the Aaron Rodgers pose because I'm from Wisconsin. Or is that just to get up and dance like there's nobody looking? But for the next 10 seconds, I don't care if it's embarrassing in your house. Stand up, strike a pose, and say, "I have a story to tell." Let's see you do it. Lee Chang, let's see you do it. Chris Heng, let's see you do it. Love Michelle, let's see you do it. Maribel, let's see you do it. I have a story to tell. And that story is going to change lives. I have a story to tell, and that story is going to change lives. You know, I actually didn't get my start as a professional speaker. I got my start as a professional magician. And I worked magic for 10 years professionally. After those 10 years, I decided I needed to get a real job, and I became a public school teacher. I taught high school math for 12 years. During that time, I picked up an advanced degree in how adults learn. And so I really bring 2 things to the table. The first is a little bit of stagecraft from my years of doing magic, and the second is a real understanding of how adults learn. I'm hyper-focused on the person that you're talking to. How are they hearing it? How are they listening to it? What bores them? What excites them? I want to make sure that you're telling your story in the most compelling way, so that the person who's listening to it, whether that's one person across the table from Starbucks, one person on the telephone, 5 people in a Zoom call, 6 people in a living room, or 100 people on the biggest stage of your life, I want to make sure that you are communicating in the most effective way. My goal is not that they would just think you're funny. My goal is not that they would cry. My goal is not that they would call you up afterwards and say, wow, you're a really good speaker. What's my goal? I only have one goal. My only goal is that they would want to take the next step with you. Whatever that next step is. If that next step is to watch a video, they'd watch the video. If that next step is to reach out and direct message you, that's what they should do. If the next step is to come to a meeting, come to an event, sign on the dotted line, whatever the next step is, my only measure of success is what % of the time does that happen? Does the person who you're talking to want to take the next step? And today, in the next 30 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that and how to apply that to the 5 fab presentations that Eric just talked about. The first thing we have to do, the very first thing that we have to do, is learn how to tell your story in the most effective way. You have a great story to tell. You have a story to tell that will change lives, but you have to tell it in a very compelling way. I've been fortunate enough over the last 10 years to work with some of the greatest speakers in the world. I've worked with Damon John, I've worked with Grant Cardone, I've worked with Michael Hyatt, household names that you hear every single day. But most of the people that I work with are not professional speakers. Most of the people that I work with wouldn't even consider themselves speakers. Most of the people that I work with are just like you. Every day I work with network marketing professionals to help them tell their story in a way that causes whoever they're speaking to take the next step. And to do that, you have to understand that all great stories have 3 parts. All great stories have 3 parts, and I want to map out these 3 parts in your story. The first part of the story is what we call the before. The before part of the story is what your life was like before. What your life was like before the change happened, before you joined network marketing, before you discovered your product, before you started getting mentored. What was your life like before? And in the very best stories, you're going to do this in 60 seconds. And in the very best stories, you're going to break it down to the biggest 3 things. See, great stories don't take 20 minutes to tell. Great stories don't have 16 components. The first thing you should know about great stories is that they're simple. Simple to tell, which means they're simple to listen to. Simple to tell, which means they're simple to remember. What was your life before? Give me 3 characteristics. Before, I was struggling to pay the bills. Before, every week I'd look in my bank account and it was going in the wrong direction. Before, I got in a lot of arguments with my spouse about money. There it is, 3 characteristics. You can tell a story about your product too. If you help people with their health and their weight, before I struggled to lose weight. Before, I would get on the scale and I wouldn't even want to look in the number. Before, I would walk by a mirror and I'd look the other way intentionally because I never wanted to see myself in the mirror. 3 characteristics of what your life was like before. You get 60 seconds to do that. That's the first of the 3 parts. After you have the before, you're ready for part 2. Part 2 is the pivot. Part 2 is the pivot. When your life changes, when your life goes from before to after, from before to now, what caused the pivot? Did you attend a meeting? Did you find the right company? Did you have a mentor? Did a friend make an invitation? What is the pivot? If it's your product story, did you discover the product? Did someone introduce you to it? Did you try it? Did it happen right away? What is your pivot? You should be able to tell your pivot in about 30 seconds. This is when the story changes. This is when things go from bad to good. This is when the emotional line of your story changes. What is your pivot? So you start with the before, 60 seconds, 3 characteristics. And then you hit the pivot. And then things changed. Then my life changed. Then I got invited to a meeting. Then I got asked to watch a video. Then I saw something on social media. Whatever it is, keep it simple. Simple so they can learn it, simple so they can remember it. Which brings us to the third and final part. All great stories have three parts: a before, a pivot, and what I like to call the now or the after. What is your life like now? What is your life like after? And in the best stories, you're going to do this in 60 seconds or less. And in the very best stories, you're going to take the three characteristics that you mentioned in the before, and you're going to change them. They're going to match up. Before, I struggled to pay my bills. Now, I pay my bills and I'm saving money every month. Before, I looked at my bank account and it was headed in the wrong direction. Now, I pay my bills and there's money left over to give away. Before, I argued with my spouse a lot about money. Now, we get along great, and I just bought her a brand new convertible. That's the perfect story. The perfect story only has three parts. Most people overcomplicate this. And if you overcomplicate your story, if your story has all these ups and downs, if your story has all these bad things that happen one right after the other, you are not alone. Lots of people struggle to tell their story. I was in Damon John's office, 10th floor of a building in New York City. And he asked me, how's my opening story? And I said, you mean you're opening 6 stories? Because I count that you told 6 different stories. Simplify, simplify, simplify. You get good at doing this in 3 minutes. You get good at a very simple before, a pivot, and after. Here's what I know. I know that if your before describes the life of the people you're in front of. So I'm talking to somebody, and when I describe my before, and I list those 3 characteristics about what my life was like before, that should match their life right now. I'll know this worked because they'll be nodding their heads like this. I'll know this worked because they'll be going like, oh my gosh, that's me. How did you know? Were you listening in through my Alexa last night? Were you at the dinner table with my spouse and I? Because we were just talking about this last night. If you get the before right, the person sitting in front of you will be nodding. It doesn't matter if you're on Zoom. It doesn't matter if you're at Starbucks. It doesn't matter if you're in front of 50 people. If you get the before right, they are nodding their heads and they are leaning into you. Then, the second thing you have to get right is your after has to be their dreams, has to be their aspirations, has to be what they want. And I'm telling you this, if your before describes their life now, and your after describes what they want, they'll do anything for that pivot. They'll show up at meetings, they'll come late at night, they'll come early in the morning. They'll watch videos, they'll listen in on calls, they'll do anything you want to get that pivot. Now, there's 2 ways that you can get this wrong. One way you can get this wrong is you can describe your life now. You can describe your life now and be like, I can't pay my bills, and I don't have any extra money, and I'm having to sell my kids toys so that they can have food on the table. And if the person you're talking to is like, none of that resonates with me, then you missed. Then your pivot isn't going to be an effective pivot. The other way you can get this wrong is your after cannot be what they want. If your after is like, now I got 3 cars, now I got 2 houses, and now I fly private jets all the time, and they're like, that's not really what I want. All I really want is to send my kids to college and give some money to my church. And you missed. You missed. So you have to know the person that you're talking to or the group that you're talking to. And when you know the person that you're talking to, match your before to them. If they're a single mom and you were a single mom, tell that story. If they're struggling financially and you were struggling financially, tell that story. And then match your after to them. Know what motivates them. Know what they want in life and what their hopes and dreams are. And make that the outcome. Because I tell you this, when your before matches where they are now, and your after matches their hopes and dreams, they will do anything for the pivot. They will do anything for this pivot. They'll show up, they'll sign up, They'll watch, they'll listen, they'll call, they'll tell their friends, they'll do anything for that pivot. That is how you tell a great story. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. Some of you right now are thinking, I don't have a story to tell, because the next thing I'm going to do is show you how to use this 3-part story structure for the first 2 of the 5 FAB presentations. There's 2 presentations of the 5 that you only have to tell stories. The first of the 5 presentations is your story, and the second one is the third-party story, the edification and validation story. Let's start with your story. Let's do that one first. I know what some of you are thinking right now. I don't have a story. I don't have a story. I mean, I have a story, but it's not like other people's stories. It's not like these stories of these people who are coming out here and they're like, my life went from broke to rich, or they got cured from the rarest disease. I don't have a story like that. Here's what I want you to know. Your story is perfect, just as it is. You never have to have story envy, and you never have to apologize for your story, because I know this. Ordinary stories are actually better than extraordinary stories. I coach astronauts. I coach people who've been in space. I coach someone who's climbed to the top of Mount Everest. When the guy who's climbed to the top of Mount Everest tells that story, how many other people in the room can say, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about? None of them. You know, I coach someone else. I coach someone else who tells a story about arguing with his spouse about whether the toilet paper should come out over the top of the roll or under the bottom of the roll. When he tells that story, how many other people in the room can relate to that story? Every single one of them. Ordinary stories are better than extraordinary stories, because your purpose of telling this story is to connect with their life. Your purpose of telling the story isn't to wow them and amaze them. Your purpose of telling the story is to connect with them. What if we judge the stories that we told, not based on how many people came up to us afterwards and said, wow, you're an amazing storyteller? What if instead we judge the stories that we told based on how many people come up to us afterwards and say, that same thing happened to me. I feel like you and I have lived kind of the same life. I feel like we know each other. I feel like you understand me. That's your goal. So if you're sitting there right now saying, I don't have a story like that. I don't have this rarest disease. I'm a bajillionaire. I don't have a story like that. Perfect. You have the right story for you, and it will be attractive to a certain group of people. It won't attract the exact same people that my story does, or Eric's story does, or Marina's story does. It'll attract the right people to you if you can get good at telling it. You have a story to tell, and there are other people in your situation who are not alone. So don't ever have story envy. Don't listen to this 2 days, 3 days, and say, I just don't have a story like that. Good! Because that story is not right for everyone. Your story is right for you. And if you tell it authentically and transparently, it will make all the difference in the world. Now, some of you are saying, I'm just getting started. Like, I'm 1 day into this, or I haven't even signed up yet. I'm just thinking about doing this. How can I possibly have a before and after story if I've been doing this for like 10 days? Well, my good friend Jimmy Nelson, Coach Jimmy, the MC of this event, has what he calls the 7-day start story. The 7-day start story, everybody watching this has one, of the first 7 days. You don't have to tell the whole, it went like this, and here's the end of the story. You can say the story is just getting started. Here's where we are after 7 days. Over Thanksgiving, my sister and I were talking, and she said, hey, have you ever tried overnight oatmeal? Like overnight oats, you put it in your refrigerator overnight and you eat it the next morning? And I was like, no, I've never tried it. She's like, it's delicious. You should try it. And so for the past 7 days, Every morning, I've been having overnight oats, and they are delicious. You know, I struggled, I don't know if anybody else struggles, but I struggled during the pandemic with weight and keeping my weight down. I always struggle with an energy lull in the afternoon. And I don't know about you, but about an hour before dinner, I want to eat everything in my kitchen. And then for the last 7 days, I started eating overnight oats. Pivot. I changed one habit, overnight oats. Today, I've lost 6 pounds in 7 days. Today, I don't have any energy lull at any time during the day because oats stay with you all day. And today, I don't snack in the afternoon. I don't eat anything between lunch and dinner. See what I did there? I don't know if there's a company that has overnight oats as their product, but I just sold you some. Everybody's sitting there like, where do I get these overnight oats? It's oatmeal, people. It's just oatmeal. So what did I do there? My story's not finished. I don't know. I could put on the rest of that weight tomorrow. My story's not finished. I haven't made $1 million selling overnight oats. I just told you about the first 7 days, and it's going pretty well. You want to know the beauty of that story, who it attracts? It attracts other people who are fast starters, other people who get that rush of excitement at the start of a new habit. It attracts people who are new. It attracts the exact people that you want to attract to your opportunity. You've got a story to tell. Don't apologize for it. Don't get story envy. Don't be jealous of other people. Everybody has a story to tell. Now, the second of the Fab Five that you only need to be able to tell a story to do is the third-party story. And even after everything I've said so far, if you're still not comfortable and you still don't think your story is the right story for this person, or you don't think you're going to be good enough to tell your story, which I disagree with, you can always tell someone else's story. You can always introduce your prospect to someone else. You can introduce them to your mentor, to the person upline from you. You can introduce them to someone's story on a video. You can introduce them to just the company story. And you can tell that story the same way. They have a before, they have a pivot, and they have an after. Number one thing you want to do is edify them. What's one way you do that? Quick tip. Would you see what I did there? I Scooby-Dooed you. If you want to say something really important, don't pound the podium and say, this is really important. If you have something really important to say, don't be like, write this down. Sean Crump, write this down. Don't do that. If you have something really important to say, look left, look right, and drop your head about 6 inches. And the audience will physically lean into you. I saw about a dozen of you right in front of me here physically lean into the screen when I did that. Here's how you edify somebody. Make it seem like there's limited access to that person. Okay? If I'm setting up a call with my buddy Robert, and I'm trying to get a prospect to get on a call with Robert because Robert gives the presentation better than I do, I'd be like, Robert doesn't have a lot of time for these calls, but I talked to him about having a call with you. Robert only does these calls once in a while, but I talked to him about doing that call with you. He's going to do it with you. That's one way to edify them. Let me tell you one more way, a really slick way to introduce someone, to introduce a third party to one of your prospects. Don't just give them a professional introduction. Start with a professional introduction. He's been with the company for 10 years. He's made a lot of money with the company. He's gone from here to here. Give him the full before and after. But finish with a character introduction. What I like best about Robert is he's a good dad, and he's a good husband, and he has strong values. What I love best about Robert is he's not just a colleague here at the company, but we've become good friends, and my kids love hanging out with him. If you finish the professional introduction with a character introduction, that's like superpower to that person because you're transferring trust, you're transferring credibility, you're transferring all the love right to that other person. So those are 2 types of presentations from the Fab Five. The first 2 from the Fab Five. Your story, and you have one, don't tell me you don't have one, and a third-party story. Now, a little while ago, you wrote, I have a story to tell in the chat. I would love right now for you to give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is like, I am perfect at telling my story. 1 or 2 or 3 is like, I'm going to get perfect, but right now this is a hot mess, but I just learned what Pat told us. I'm going to get better at this story. Give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 10.
Give
How
yourself
are
a
you at telling your
score,
story?
self-audit
I love these
time.
numbers
Type
because
it
you
in
guys are
group
being
chat.
honest. Nina, you're being honest. Patricia, you're being honest. I love the fact that Katie May's being honest and Valerie Staunton's being honest. Diane Rodriguez is being honest. Great job. I don't want you to stand up there and say, I'm perfect at this, because that's not how we get better. How we get better is saying, there's a better way to do this. I am committed to learning a better way to do this. Now, the story is one part of a great presentation. But great presentations, full presentations, have 4 parts. And the other 3 types of presentations of the Fab 5 that Eric talked about, the other 4 parts, the other 3 types of presentations have 4 separate sections. The 4 separate sections are an opening heart story. We just talked about that. You know how to do that. How many parts are there to a great story? There's 3, a before, a pivot, and an after. If you have more parts than that to your story, you're wasting time and confusing people. You're losing sales every time you do it. I don't high 5 people. You know why? 5's too many. I don't high 4 people. You know why? 4 is confusing. I high 3 people because 3 sells. I high 3 people because 3 can be learned, 3 can be remembered. You should always high 3 people. If you want to high 3, put your hands up right now. Let's high 3. Yeah, now we'll know who watched my presentation, because if anybody comes out here and high fives you, you know they didn't watch my presentation. You just say, that's too confusing for me. I high 3 people. I just threw everybody under the bus who comes after me. All right, 4 parts to a great presentation. Opening heart story. You already know how to do that. It has 3 parts. We know how to tell our story. What's the second of the 4 parts? The head section. This is where you actually help them. This is where you teach them. And here's what I want you to know about the head section of your presentation. Help people. Actually help them. Don't just describe the problem, and don't tease that there's a solution once you sign up, once you pay me, once you show up. Actually help them right here, right now, today. How much time do I have in front of this person? I told them it'd be about 10 minutes. Okay, in 10 minutes, how can I help them the most? Teach them something, help them with something, give them something, help people. That's the head or content section of your presentation. Third section of the presentation is the hands. This is the call to action. This is telling them the one thing that they should do next. But don't stop there. A lot of people make the mistake of stopping their presentation with the tactical hands call to action, and that's a mistake. I want you to finish your presentation with heart. I want you to finish your presentation with emotion. I want you to finish every time you have an opportunity to talk to someone. I want you to do all 4 parts, and you should always finish with heart. At the end of this presentation, these last 2 parts, the tactical call to action and the emotional call to action, at the end of the presentation, we actually have 2 closes. A tactical close and an emotional close. Why? That's because there's 2 types of decision makers in the world. There are tactical decision makers and emotional decision makers. Tactical decision makers just want the tactics. What is it? How much does it cost? Is there a payment plan? Do you take American Express? Tactics, 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 tactics. But if you just do that, if you just give people the tactics of your program, the tactics of your product, the tactics of anything you want them to do next, you're leaving half the people behind. You're leaving half the money on the table, and you're not having the impact that you could be having on this earth. Because half the people in this world are emotional decision makers. Emotional decision makers don't need more tactics, and more tactics won't get them to move off of maybe into yes. You need to tell them what it will feel like. Now, I can tell what type of decision maker you are simply by watching you present for 2 or 3 minutes. A tactical decision maker, when it comes to the end of their presentation, they are all tactics. They're like, oh, it's a 14-day thing. It costs $297, but if you pay it today, we can get it to you for $247. It's just tactics, 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 tactics. And the emotional people are left high and dry. I can also tell if you're an emotional decision maker. If you're an emotional decision maker, when you get to the time of your presentation where you ask the audience to do something, you just say, it'll feel good. And they're like, what is it? You're like, it doesn't matter. It will feel so good. You need to do this. I did it. It felt good. And the tactical decision makers I left high and dry. If you want to grow as fast as you can grow, if you want to impact as many lives as you can impact in 2021, if you want to go from amateur to all-star and from all-star to every year perennial all-star Hall of Famer, get good at both tactical and emotional at the end of your presentation. And by the way, if you are offering an opportunity to couples, or if someone you're talking to needs to get the permission of their spouse to say yes, you should know that most married couples are one tactical decision maker married to one emotional decision maker, and either one of them can veto what you want them to do. So you better get good at both of these. This is the 4-part story braid framework. This is the 4 things that you should do in every communication. On social media live, 4 parts. On a phone call, 4 parts. On a presentation at Starbucks, or in your living room, or on a Zoom call, 4 parts to the presentation. Heart, head, hands, and heart. And now I'm going to show you how you can use this 4-part story braid framework to give the last 3 presentations that Eric talked about. There's 3 other presentations, and they all have this 4-part structure. An opening, which is the story that we practiced in 3 parts. Hi 3, if you remember the 3 parts of your opening story. The content, where you actually help people. The tactical call to action, where you ask them to do one thing. And I can't stress that enough. When you get to that tactical call to action, you only want to ask them to do one thing. A great presentation is like a sidewalk. It leads the audience down a path to a single point of decision. It doesn't offer 5 options. It tells them what to do next. And then an emotional close to help the emotional decision makers come along for the ride. Now, there's 3 parts of the presentation, 3 different types of presentations that this helps. Of the Fab 5, we already talked about the first 2, your story and the company story, or the 3rd part, edification story. And there's 3 other types of presentations that it works for. The first type of presentation, the number 3 on the list, was the opportunity presentation. This is when you're exposing a prospect to the business opportunity that you're offering them. Let's look at what the 4 parts of the presentation looks like. First, an opening story. What's that story? 3 parts. Before I had this opportunity, my life looked like this. Then I discovered this opportunity. Now my life looks like this. A big contrast. Instead of being like this, I'm like this. Instead of being like this, I'm like this. Instead of being like this, I'm like this. You see what I'm doing there? It's called the left-right pivot. Everybody can do it right now. I'm not a big dancer, but this is like a dance. If we could get a disco beat ready, this is about as much as I dance. It's called the left-right pivot. If you're standing for your presentation, you can left-right pivot. But here's the great part, because most of us are on Zoom now for most of our presentations. You can left-right pivot right in your chair. So try it with me. First, this way. I used to be like this. Now I'm like this. I used to be like this. Now I'm like this. Can we have a nice disco beat here? Dance! Terrell Montez, you are standing perfectly still. Lakeisha McCaleb, we want to see your front, not your back. Danalyn Bennett, I can't see you pivoting at all. Who's going to pivot the best here? Elizabeth Schlunke, you guys are pivoting together as a group. I didn't know this was a group activity. Clive Leach and Diana Ross, I love the fact that you are pivoting together. This is the left-right pivot. That's all you have to do to tell a good story. It used to be like this, now I'm like this. Used to be like this, now I'm like this. Used to be like this, now I'm like this. All right, you guys are good at this. Some of you need a little work, I'll be honest. I wouldn't claim to be the best dancer in the room. I just was today. All right. The business opportunity presentation starts with a story. Used to be like this, now I'm like this. Part 2, teaching. What am I going to teach you about the opportunity? What are the possibilities? What do you actually do? I teach you about our company. I teach you about how it works. I teach you about how it has affected my life. Third part, call to action. What is the next step for the person I'm talking to? If you want to take advantage of this opportunity, what is the next step? But don't end there. Don't end with, here's something you have to sign, or go to this website and click, or download the app. Don't end with the tactical call to action. End with emotion. I know this is going to change your life because I know it changed mine. I know the impact this is going to have on you and your kids and your future. I know how
Hey,
this
that's
will
my
feel
line.
when you wake up a year from now and have this taken care of. That's the business opportunity presentation in 4 parts. Let's talk about the onboarding presentation, because when you enroll someone new onto your team, that first conversation, that first training that you do with them sets the tone for how they are going to be as a team member for you. So let's talk about that presentation. Starts with story. What's the story you want to tell here? When I got started, I struggled to find customers, struggled to not be salesy, struggled to be afraid. Then I learned some simple techniques from a good mentor. And now, instead of struggling to find customers, I have customers on demand. Instead of struggling to, I forget what my second one was, now I'm better at that. And instead of being afraid to give my presentation, now I tell my story every single day. And so what I'm going to share with you, switch into teaching, is how to start strong. 30 good minutes of teaching here. How do you start strong? What are the activities you should do? What is the key to being successful? What do I want everybody on my team doing and believing? Call to action. What's the most important next step? What's the most important thing for you to do next to get off to a fast start, to become successful at this, to be a team member who's in my Hall of Fame? But don't end there. Don't end telling them what to do next. Finish with emotion. And man, we are going to look back on this day 12 months from now and say, this was the day it started. This was the day you rewrote your future. This was the day that you secured your kids' future and your spouse's future and your family's future from generation to generation. This was the day. And I can tell you how that feels, because the same thing happened to me. That's the onboarding presentation. 4 parts. Start with story, teach, call to action, finish with emotion. And the last of the Fab 5. The last of the Fab 5 is your skills training. Continual skills training, because the team that has the most skill is the team that's going to win. So pick the skill that you're going to teach. Let's take a skill. Social media. Let's get better at social media. What story do you think I want to tell here? My business before I used social media effectively. Then I learned social media. Who's ready for a left-right pivot? And instead of struggling to find customers, now I got lots of customers. Instead of nobody knowing who I was, a lot of people know who I am. Instead of having no presence on social media, now I get customers and I don't even know where they came from because they happened on social media. Left-right pivot in the opening story. Then teach. Teach 30 good minutes of social media. How to do it, why to do it, when to do it. Teach good stuff. Then a tactical call to action. What's the most important thing you want your team members to do in the next 7 days on social media? Challenge them. Post live for 15 minutes every day for the next 7 days. Double your number, whatever it is. Give them one call to action. But you know what I'm going to say next? Don't end there. Tell them what it's going to feel like when you wake up in the morning and overnight while you slept, your number of friends went up by 100. Tell them what it feels like when you wake up in the morning and messengers going off because people are asking for phone calls with you. People are asking to learn more from you, and you don't even know where they're coming from. What is that going to feel like? What is it going to feel like to look in your bank account and see money left over at the end of the month? What is it going to look like? What is it going to feel like to be able to give presents, to be able to give gifts, to be able to give to charity? What is that going to feel like? Because you picked up this new skill. That's the continual skills training presentation. Every communication that you do, every Facebook Live, every phone conversation, every Zoom training, everything that you do starts with story, has a teaching component that actually helps people, has a singular call to action, and finishes with emotion. That's how you tell your story, and that's how you give a great presentation. My business struggled for years. My business struggled for years to get customers. My business struggled because I had to be gone from my family and work long hours. My business struggled to pay the bills. It was a losing money business for a long time. And then a friend said to me, "Why don't you tell people your story? All you do is stand up and teach. All you do is ask people to take the next step. Why don't you tell people your story?" And I thought to myself, I don't think anybody wants to hear my story. My story is not that exciting. Kind of an average kid from an average family in an average town in an average state with an average future. Who wants to hear that? You want to know who wants to hear that? Lots of average people. So I started telling my story, not once, but every day. Not always in front of big crowds, sometimes in front of small crowds, sometimes in front of one person. And my business went from not making money to making money. My name went from not being known to being known, and my future went from uncertain to certain. If you're struggling in business, if you're just getting started, tell your story. If you've had a burst of success in the beginning and you want that to continue and grow, tell your story. And if you are already an all-star and you want to become a perennial all-star, a Hall of Fame all-star, tell your story. It's 2:00 in the morning and I'm driving through rural Kentucky and a thought pops into my head. I have a story to tell and it will change lives. On a scale of 1 to 10, why don't you type into the chat right now how committed you are to telling your story in 2021. If you are not a 10 right now, I have to ask, why are you not committed to the one thing that can grow, the one thing that can create impact, and the one thing that can help you achieve the purpose that you were put on earth here to achieve? Stand up and give us your power pose and shout as loud as you can. I have a story to tell! I love all the 10s. Debbie Beebe, Coach Bard Bell, you have a story to tell. Jaya Crawford, turn on your camera. Robert Chapman, I love it. You have a story to tell. Jennifer Bartley's dancing. Robert Russell is not. Let's go! Woo! I have a story to tell. All right. I love it. Michael Paluca, they are going to know my name. James Kelly, Possibility City, Mario Fields, I have a story to tell. All right, what we are going to do right now is a 10-minute activity in your dashboard. If you open up your dashboard, there is an activity, a 10-minute exercise that we're going to do. The first thing, and this is in session 2, presentation power. The first thing we're going to do is a self-evaluation on where you are on the Fab 5 right now. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you at telling your story? How are you at referring people to someone else's story? Like, here's my upline, here's a video to watch, here's a call I would like you to be on. How are you at telling that story? How are you at the onboarding presentation, the first presentation you give to a new team member that's going to set the tone on a scale of 1 to 10? How are you at training your team? And I missed one, I missed number 3. How are you at the opportunity presentation to a prospect? Give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 10, and then below that, reflect on your 3 biggest opportunities for improvement in the area of presentation and storytelling. Now, that's not going to take you 10 minutes. And so with the remaining time in the 10 minutes, what I want you to do is to start thinking about the story that you tell. 3 parts: a before, What's your before? You only get to list 3 things. I was like this, I was like this, I was like this. Your pivot, what's your pivot? And your after. Remember, you use the 3 from the before. I turned this into this, I turned this into this, and I turned this into this. Because at the end of this 10-minute work session, this is not a bathroom break. This is not a go let the dog out and have a snack break. This is a work break. After this 10-minute session, we're going to go into breakout rooms and give you an opportunity to tell your story. I believe in taking action, and we're going to take action in 10 minutes. And so we're going to take a 10-minute countdown timer break for you to work. And at the end of that 10 minutes, you're going to go into a breakout room and you are going to tell your story. So let's start the timer on the work session, and we will be back in just a few minutes to send you into your breakout rooms.
Perfect. Okay. I'm going to stop share this moment because this isn't just a video watching. This is not movie night. It's work night. It's training night. Okay. So those of you who have taken a picture of the self-audit, put your hands up. So the rest who didn't put their hands up means they didn't take a picture. Who has it? You can use your emoji. You can put your video on. Do you all have a picture of your self-audit? I put it in the group chat. Okay, so leaders and all that, you can put your individual group chat. Okay, let's take 5 minutes to do this self-audit. Okay, I put it in the main group, One Global. Okay, leaders, can you put in your respective groups and let's all do our self-audit. Okay, important. Those of you who want, okay, you can type it in the group chat. You can actually put down what they are and the points next to it. Okay, can we do this exercise? Or if you want, you have done it personally, you can tabulate upon how much, what is the overall score, okay? Those who don't have, you can put on your audio, okay? No one's gonna penalize you, okay? No problem, okay? The very first one is rank yourself, okay? From 1 to 10, 1 to 10. The first one is your personal story. What's your personal story? Okay, how great are you in telling, number 1, your personal story? Number 2, third party validation. Okay, 1 to 10. Number 3, what about opportunity presentation? What is your own personal audit, right? What about onboarding new members? How do you onboard your team new members? And lastly, your training of your team. What is your personal? That means each one of us, okay, I want you to know this. I'm not the only leader in this group, okay? If you have brought in one person, I repeat myself, if you have brought in one person in this business, you are a leader. You are a leader because you're responsible for that person to launch that person's business. As long as you brought in one person, you are a leader, okay? So I need you to rank and audit yourself. How do you tell your personal story? Do you tell it with emotion? Do you verbal diarrhea, 1 to 10? What about third-party validation? Telling other people's story, 1 to 10. How about your business presentation, 1 to 10? Onboarding your new team member. And how about your training? Your training, your team. Not my training the team, not One Global Elite training the team. Your personal training, the person you're responsible for, who you're brought in for the business. Okay. Now, if you have done that, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 upon 50. Upon 50, I don't need the individual answers. If you can you put down your total score upon 50 into the group chat? This is set. Okay, have. Nice. Who else? I'll give you time. Counting down to 2 more minutes. What is your evaluation of presentation power, your self-audit upon 50? Nice. Because we're all new and we're all learning. Okay, this is a learning journey for all of us. Let's grow together. Like I always say, we don't just go to an opportunity, we grow in the opportunity, we grow ourselves. And I cannot repeat myself enough. Your personal growth is directly proportionate to your income growth. So let's grow together in our storytelling, in our skill set. The biggest takeaway for me is this: the team with the most skill set wins. Remember this. So it's not just one global, it's your personal team, the team with in your team, those with the most skill set, whether it's social media, whether it's presentation, whether it's storytelling, whatever that is, the team wins. Okay. What else? Who else? One more minute, one last minute. Okay. Now the last part is this. Now I want you all to remember this. Take a book. Now I want all of you to have a proper book for training. All right. Write this down and put a date there. This is your self-audit for today. And let's do this audit every 3 months that we have brushed up our personal skill set to grow in this business. Can we do that? Okay, perfect. So we have all our personal score. Now in your own notebook, okay, I want you not to just have this personal score. Right now, when you finish tonight's training, I want all of you to write your reflection on the 3 biggest opportunities for improvement. Where do you want to improve? Number 1, the 3, right? Your 3 biggest improvement. I always say the biggest room in your house is the room for improvement. Okay. So in your own reflections, what are the 3 biggest opportunities for opportunity in your own notebook? Okay. Now, so I like you all to put this down. Okay. And then last week, you know, for today's training, I only played today's training, I played the full training. Last week, I played 20 minutes. It was a personal story. I kept the back, right? And I asked all of you to do homework. Okay, so who did their 3-minute stories? Hands up. 3 minutes and no more. So the next part of this training is this, where we do role play or we tell stories, right? Remember, I ended off last week's training by saying, this is here, we are family. Okay, if we want to make mistakes, we make it here, not outside, because the world only gives us one opportunity and they're watching us. So this is a very safe ground for us to practice. And if you watch the continuing part of this video, those who tell the stories more than 2 minutes, cut off. So we need to keep practicing our story, that we keep it simple. Simplify. The first part before, who can tell me? Video, voice on. First part before, how long? Nobody, talk to myself.
60 seconds.
First part 60 seconds.
60 seconds. Perfect. And the pivot?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
And then the last part?
60.
90 seconds.
60, I think.
60.
60.
60 or 90.
So it's 60, 30, 60. Okay, around there. 90, okay, around there. Okay. So, but everything has to be tried. We have to condense it because people have no patience. Okay. So we need to remember what sound bites are. So he didn't mention now. When he said the first part, right? Hang on. 3 characteristics, right? Basically, most of us, right? Okay, sometimes we're all guilty because most of us who's lived past 30 years old, got children, wow, a lot of stories, which is why he said, right? Wow, you got 6 stories. Which one you're telling today? Got so many. Wow, my husband like this, then my children like this, then I went to bankruptcy, then wow, so many, but people cannot remember. Wow, this girl very Taiwan drama one. No, let's keep it to Korean drama. Don't make Taiwan drama tomorrow. Wow, then what happened now? Wow, I thought this, cannot. Too much to handle, okay? People think, this one now, she start her story, cannot stop. The minute she start, she rattle on, cannot finish, okay? We keep it to Korean drama. Very nice, short, sweet, and happy. We pivot, like that, okay? So we pivot. Don't make Indian story. Don't make, sorry, not racist, because Indian movies is 4 hours long, okay? Although I love it, but when we want to say, the 3 characteristics should be your soundbite. So for example, I repeated this last week. Joanne, housewife. 6 friends. Sexy global entrepreneur. Simple. They remember as this. So when people use me to sell me on social media, housewife, 6 friends, cannot do it, but did it. Very simple. So keep your story simple. Don't have so many and then chapter 2, chapter 3. Nobody want to do chapter 2, chapter 3. Okay. So remember to keep it simple. Okay. 3 characteristics. How you pivoted. What was it? And then what? Not got health issue lah, later got lose weight lah, got high cholesterol, then got blood also. Wow, so many things, like the whole world. Okay, no, okay, we keep it simple. So we need to. Ruby is laughing. Okay, so keep it simple. I'm going to play. So continuing this, let's see what you're going to do. So I like us, instead of next week's training for us to play another Eric Worre, I want assignments to be done because we need to up level our skill. A lot of us I know, the book volumes and volumes, never practice. Then later on say, yeah, I remember learning, but never practice. Okay, so we are not one of those write storybook one, write notes one to sell like 10-year series. Okay, we want to put to practice what we learn. So today, the last part of today's training, you listen to the finishing. Those of you who write a story and think, oh, maybe wrong already. Last week I never listened hard enough. Okay, today's training, I'm going to put it in our one global elite portal because I know it's quite complex. I listen also like, which part of the story? What launching story? I don't know what for part. Okay, I know it's a big
up there. I'm in a meeting. I cannot help you.
Okay, so
you ask Edward to help you.
So I'm going to put tonight's training.
What happened? You use? How come it becomes like that?
Angel, your mic is on.
I'm sorry.
So cute. It's okay. Okay, so tonight's training is going to be in the one portal. Okay, and then you know when the beautiful thing is this, when you sign up for one portal, your leaders will know which one you go through, which one never go through. Okay, okay, so if you never up your level, your skill, you know what you didn't go through. Okay. So now every single materials are being provided. I'm going to upload this. Admin will help me to upload this into our one portal as soon as possible. The Chinese speaking, bear with us. We're still trying to find a way to translate this to Cantonese and Chinese for our Chinese speaking friends. Okay. So do your homework. Next week, today got 35. Don't next week because got sharing, then become only got 5 people. Okay. I'm going to take note of so admin, please take picture. Okay. Don't today, because I say got good training, got 35 people. Next week, storytelling left 5 people. Only me, admin, and a few people laughing. Okay, not funny. Okay. I want a winning team. That's why it's called Winners Speakers Academy. Make us all proud. Okay. Next week, okay. If I got 5 people, I know who you are. I'm going to send you a nice meal. Okay. Okay, so 35 or more next week. Okay, leaders, now you know who your brood are in this team. You make sure they have the log on for next week's training when we do our practice session, where we practice each other's story. 可以不可以? I want to hear voice. Don't let me talk to myself. Yes or no?
Yes.
Resounding can or not?
Okay,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So if you thought today's training was excellent and your team people couldn't log in because they're out, I think, telling their story and prospecting, which I'm hoping, make them watch the video in the portal, practice it. You have 7 full days and a good weekend. I don't know if Malaysia is going to go to full lockdown. A lot more time to practice your story. Okay, so I say, stay home, stay safe, upgrade skills. Let's practice our story. Okay. Okay, I'm going to continue our training for tonight, all right?
Well, welcome back, everybody. In a moment, we are going to go into our breakout rooms and share our story. Before we talk about that, I hope that you took the self-evaluation exercise seriously and thought hard about the score that you gave yourself in each of the 5 different types of presentations in the Fab 5. And I hope you did some reflection on where you could get the most bang for your buck, where you could improve the most in this area. Now, in a moment, we're going to go into breakout sessions. It's going to be a small group of people, and your task is to tell your story in 2 minutes or less. We're going to be in the breakout rooms for 15 minutes. And so what you want is to pick somebody to go first, and they have 2 minutes to tell their story. Somebody should be the timekeeper in the room, and you're going to have to cut them off after 2 minutes because that's how we all get time to go. After the person gives their story for 2 minutes, that story probably will have a before, a pivot, and an after where you turn this into this, and this into this, and this into this. After they tell their story in less than 2 minutes, take a moment or two and give feedback, just for 60 seconds. You don't have to have everybody give feedback. You get 60 seconds of feedback. If you don't have time to verbally give feedback in your breakout room, that's what the chat is for. I want you to fill the chat with love because in the next 15 minutes, You're going to get to know some people. You're going to get to hear some stories. You're going to hear some pain. You're going to hear some sadness. You're going to feel some emotion. That's going to create a bond between the people in your breakout room. And it's going to take some courage for some of you to tell this story for the very first time. So I want that chat in your breakout room to be filled with love. I want that chat in that breakout room to be filled with encouragement. I want you to be the biggest cheerleaders as each person is telling their story. So the first person will go 2 minutes to tell their story, 1 minute of feedback. Then the next person will go 2 minutes to tell their story, 1 minute of feedback. Keep on the clock, because in 15 minutes, we're going to come back here, and Eric will join me up here on this stage, and we're going to roll on in the large group. So we're going to go to breakout rooms right now. You have 15 minutes. Use your time wisely, and make sure everybody tells their story. Let's go to the breakout rooms.
Your speaker is off, Joanne.
You're muted, Joanne.
Sorry. Okay. So next week, we will prepare ourselves, not with paper and pen, but with tissue box, okay? And a clapper, okay? Tissue box and clapper. And I want everybody to practice love, giving emotion, encouragement, okay? I want you to hone your story to perfection, to evoke feelings, to inspire the world. Because your story means something to someone out there. And I cannot say this enough, you know, and I used to tell people, and I used to be able to, I used to have to say, oh, I have a ABC at what time. And, you know, people who know me in my team, you all will know me by now. I'm not a good morning person. You know, I get people, the Hokkien say, "Kiao ki lai," to have to work ABC, right? But, and it's true that now I get to share my story. I get to share my before what I was and now what I am. I didn't, like I say again, I'm going to say this again. Dreams, I always say dream big, right? The dreams are free, but the journey isn't. And we all will pay for it and we will enjoy it together, right? So if you remember, we need to learn two things, personal story and third-party story. So if we don't, in this family, share stories, you have no story to tell except my 6 friends story and your own story. Am I right? We don't know each other. We're a new team. We're 3 months old. So this opportunity allows us to, number one, practice our skill of storytelling, hone our skills. And then for everybody to pick up stories. It's now the time to pick up stories. All of us, if we're from another platform before, we go to events. We paid money to go to events to learn and to pick up stories in our pockets to share so that we can connect hearts, because everyone you meet may not be like a CFO or a housewife. Then like, I cannot connect hearts. They can tell me about losing weight, but I'm always thin. How? Right? To some people, I shared the video today, right? How to, you know, 面膜 and all that, right? But if forever I'm thin, you tell me about how I can lose 10 pounds. Hello, I cannot feel your pain. I'm always thin, right? So, but when your story, you know, cannot connect, when we do our FORM, you can pick up stories from somebody else. And that's what this session is for. So it's not just for personal. Listen, we're about giving and learning, right? We're here to learn other people's pain, why they're here, so that we can become better cheerleaders in our respective small group. Currently, many of the groups now are just welcome. That's all. We don't know anybody. But when we use this training in the right way, we bond as a family, we grow together, that when we reach our ranks and we have own personal breakthroughs, you feel for the person, like you feel for Madeline. You know, I want to know what she went through, her husband. By the way, thank you so much, Madeline, for your beautiful sharing of your husband. And for me, I know what you went through, the challenging times with your husband, and you're still here. You're always supporting the team. This is what I mean by story. You know, she's always been here, rain or shine. She takes a Grab despite her family issues. You know, that's something, and they can touch lives. And she's doing this for her husband, and her, you know, all of us here benefited from her sharing today about her husband's condition. Every single one of us. So can we give her a standing ovation today? That's what the team is for. That's what this team is for. It's not about Eric Worre, it's about each of your story. It's not about Eric Worre's story or Marina Worre or Pat Quinn or whatever. It's about yours. Madeline is about your story, right? Jennifer, it's your story, you know, and for sure, you know, Kelvin, it's your story, and Harson is your story, and Jeff, it's your stories. Each one of us have our own story, and the world needs to hear our story. Telly, it's your story. So let us please, you know, this training is not about me making, you know, making fun or whatever, you know, it's about learning and then practicing and be the best at our craft, because I believe in only one thing: go pro or go home. Well, we're at home, so well, okay, go pro or don't go anywhere. Okay, go pro, full stop. Okay, one global elite just goes pro, finish. Okay, so yes, so let's really truly, you know, give ourselves the opportunity to share our story, hone our story, so that we don't verbal diarrhea, and we will see each other next week. Promise me you'll do your homework. The world awaits your beautiful story. Good night, everyone.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you, Joanne. Good
Thank
night.
you,
Yeah,
Joanne.
thank you. Good
Amazing,
night.
amazing a teacher, coach for all of us.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Yeah.
Good night.
you.
Dream
Good
your
night.
story and tell your story, okay?
Yeah,
Do
sure.
yourself
Good
audit,
night.
huh? Okay.
Okay,
Good night.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.